voicemail. "Morning, Bernie." Vince pulled the readers off the bridge of his nose and looked up through his bushy gray eyebrows. He patted the open space next to him and put down his crossword puzzle. "I was thinking of you this morning. About to turn cold. I hope you start dressing warmer. I'd hate for you to catch a chill." "Thank you. I think about you every morning." I took a seat and at that moment realized exactly why Iris had called me but hadn't left a message. Earlier, I had been running late for my route, and I wanted to try to finish a little early since it was game day. "I still can't believe it's been 10 years. Vince reached over and patted my leg. "We sure still miss Richard and his guitar." "Yeah, me too." I sucked in a deep breath. My heart sank into my stomach when I looked at my watch to see the date. The anniversary of Richard's death, something I'd never forgotten until today. "You and Grady heading over to the cemetery before the big game?" Vince asked because it was high school football season and, wouldn't you know, my son Grady had gotten his degree in sports management with a minor in English and was now Sugar Creek Gap High School's English teacher and head football coach. "I'm sure we will." I tugged open my mailbag and took out Vince's mail. We probably weren't, but I wasn't going to tell anyone. I usually went to see Richard alone. "You want this or want me to put it in the mailbox?" It wasn't long after Grady was born that Richard and I had decided I'd be a stay-at-home mom and quit my job as a mail carrier. Childcare was expensive, and Richard had just gotten his first good sales job, which took him out of town a lot. It made more sense for me to quit my job than to try to find somewhere or someone to watch our son. After Richard had passed, I'd gone back to the post office. They'd offered to give me my route back, which was a driving route, but the downtown area walking route was available. It was much harder to walk and carry the mail, but staying outdoors kept my mind clear and helped me escape from thinking too much about Richard. "I'll take it," Vince said, bringing me out of my thoughts. Vince was one of the many elderly citizens who had moved to the retirement condos the nursing home offered. My parents lived here too. They weren't retired by any means, but it was a low-cost and low-maintenance way of living, and they loved it here. "Well, if I'm going to get to the game on time, I better get hustling." As I stood up, the chains holding up the swing clanked. I handed him his mail. "Growl." Vince did his best impression of the grizzly bear sound the football crowd made when someone scored a touchdown. He got up, too. "Go Grizzlies." "Rah, rah." I laughed and pumped my fist in the air. I noticed an Uber driver had pulled up. "Where are you going?" "Emergency city council meeting today. I've heard of some rumblings about Chuck Schilling selling his majority share of the country club to someone. Apparently, at last night's commissioners' meeting, things got a little heated." He didn't mention who might have bought the country club. "From what I understand, Dennis Kuntz is all up in arms. Should be a good one." "Maybe I'll stop in on my route." I waved him off before I made my way into the building. Dennis Kuntz and Chuck Schilling owned the 120 acres the country club sat on, so why would Dennis be so upset? I pondered the question as I dropped the mailbag to the floor and filled the small community boxes as quickly as possible before I locked them back up and headed out in record time. In light of the news of the sale of the country club, which was huge if what Vince had told me was true, maybe no one would remember what today meant to me. Not that I didn't love the way my community rallied around me and Grady, but it was as if they rehashed it every year when I was just wanting to grieve on my own. The bright sun had warmed the autumn day enough that I could take off my sweater. I tied it around my waist and walked over the old Mill Creek Bridge. Once over the bridge, I was standing right where I'd started my morning, next to the post office, and across the street from where I'd begin the rest of my morning route. The downtown businesses were on the left.